atheist loon who wants to force their communist agenda down my throat. I am protected by our Constitution thanks to George Mason. Not to be confused with
Bill Mason, who was his brother, and a really heck of a nice guy, but wasn't so politically involved. But a heck of a guy. But a lot of people just get him confused. George and Bill Mason.
No, James Mason. James Mason. Okay, so that's the important thing, is because of the First Amendment, excuse me, because of the First Amendment, which protects our religious freedom, that's what's made Judaism thrive in America, and that is the protection that makes America the greatest country for Jews and Judaism since we've left Babylon, bar none. That protection is why we're here. And that's the greatest thing ever. And that's why I thank God every day for being in America. One nation under God. That's my pitch for tonight, lady. That's my pitch. I have no idea what I'm talking about. Go ahead. Next.
So Korach posed as a man of the people, like as radical egalitarian. I don't trust people like that. Politicians like Bill Clinton who just follow the polls. I prefer those who stand for something more than personal popularity.
I do not have sex with a woman.
I prefer politicians and leaders who stand for a set of values that I can assess and I know that they're going to be true to them, whether those values are popular or not popular.
Okay.
Like Ronald Reagan. Much of the trouble I've gotten into in my life came from when I was feeling ignored. So intellectuals such as myself who want power.
You're an intellectual?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, go ahead.
We want to be treated with respect. Like when I feel like I'm not getting sufficient honor, I tend to act out and thrust my way towards power and attention. Like I've often sat there in a Torah class and thought, I'm smarter than the rabbi.
Oh God, now you're really Jewish. That's what a Jew does when he goes to a class. A normal goy, right? A normal goy, this could be because you're Seventh-day Adventist. I'm telling you this because you grew up this way. Normal goy, you get 500 goyim and they go see the rabbi and they're all very respectful, this guy. See, they're going to go to a class, this is the expert. You get 500 Jews in a room and it's sit down, we know more than you do. Everybody thinks they know more than everybody else. Yeah, go ahead.
So I've often acted like Korach. I remember I was taking this political science class in college, and I would argue with the professor because he was left wing and I was right wing. But I didn't just argue with him. I kind of spoke to the whole class. Said, well, I think what the professor's saying is, inaccurate and unfair, and I think people should, consider this perspective and that perspective. And I was becoming increasingly obnoxious. So finally, the professor just totally dressed me down in front of the class, so severely. Nothing like this had ever happened to me in a classroom. Then when it came time for the exams, I wrote a totally A-grade paper. He gave it a B grade, and therefore I got a B for the course. I liked the professor, and I took many more classes from him, and I got all A's. And after I left college, I wrote to him a couple of years later. He just wrote back one sentence, Luke, be very careful how you speak to people or they will hurt you. And I think it was Sunday morning, I just woke up thinking about that, and I suddenly realized he gave me a B grade as punishment. It wasn't that I misunderstood the assignment, which was what he told me at the time. It's I only realize now, 20 years later, he giving me that as a punishment, and he wrote me the letter years later just to wake me up. So, I often get into conflicts with my rabbis, and because I often think, I'm smarter and wiser than they are, and I just, I kind of want to push my way to, more power and influence, and doesn't work out so well for me. Remember, I became friends with this one rabbi.
Wait, before you get to this next point, I wanted to comment on something that you just said in this huge monologue. Mm-hmm. You talked about you don't like being ignored. Mm-hmm. You have to be the center of attention or whatever, right? I just wanted to point something out to you. I don't know if you know, but I always watch as much as I can, depending how much time I have. I shouldn't say always. I try to always watch the replay of the entire show. Mm-hmm. Okay? Mm-hmm. You trying to find the chat room? Mm-hmm. Okay. And sometimes you're not paying. I watched, and sometimes you're not paying attention when I'm talking.
No.
You're either got your face in the chat room, or you're doing whatever with fiddling with the camera, or last week you were watching the TV the whole time. Every time I started to talk, I'm going through the Rabushkin thing. It was the most important video, right? This is the one that's going to break the case. This is the one that's going to, make us famous. This is the one that's going to get us famous everywhere. We're going to end up with our, huge household names.
Married to Lubavitch woman.
Right. And the whole time that I'm talking for 11 minutes, we're going through well, not the whole time is 11 minutes. I'm talking. It's an 11-minute thing. I'm talking. Levy's watching the Boston Bruins on the set. You can watch 4 minutes straight. He's sitting there watching the thing. I'm like, Levy, what do you think of that? He's like, yeah, okay. And and I'm thinking, okay, this doesn't help Levy. If you want to people to pay attention to you and you don't want to be ignored, then you have to not ignore other people, and you have to give them the proper attention too. I'm just saying it goes both ways.
So I remember there was this rabbi that I had published these damaging reports about. We later became friendly. And he said to me, I get the feeling that somebody with you very early in your life abused their religious authority, and you just have a burning passion against anyone that you think is abusing religious authority. I thought that's really right, because I don't like people who abuse religious authority. I just it gets in my gut.
Do you think it's because of something you have with your dad?
I'm not going to say anything about my father, but I grew up in a very religious environment, and there were people who abused their religious authority.
Okay, now let me have a question. We're going to digress for a second. Now, let's talk about you've been talking about on your blog incessantly lately about your whole growing up. So I've kind of been watching some of it. I'm not going to read all of it, but I read some of it, and I don't know why you decided to do this now, but you're telling us everything from back then, and I'm kind of curious about a couple of things. When you kind of left the whole fold of the SDA church, and you kind of rebelled against your parents on that one, why didn't you just walk away completely and not be, be an agnostic or whatever? You're secular.
I was secular and atheist for years, from 18 to 22.
Oh, that's interesting. That was when that's the same time period that I was in orbit. Free fall, that's interesting, the same time period. We both have that then. We both grew up with something, right? And then fizzled and then came it was the same time period, 18 to 22.
Yeah.
And you were at UCLA.
Yeah, or at community college leading up to UCLA.
And I was at UCLA. So UCLA is the fodder if you want to end up in this show. Okay, so so you did do that for a while.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know why I didn't realize that. That was one thing. And then you were okay coming back and doing the whole God thing, even though you'd grown up with the heavy pounding in the God area?
Yeah, it's just that I guess I have an allergy to Christianity. I know that it's good for non-Jews, for many of them, and it has many beautiful aspects, but for me it just reminds me of my upbringing. I'm just allergic to it.
You're even allergic to certain things in Judaism.
Yeah, that's true, that remind me of Christianity.
And I just think you've got to purge that. It's last year we started talking about I started mentioning that Judaism has no room for a universe that's more than 6,000 years old, right? That's complete kafir. We don't have room for that. That's not Jewish, right? And Levi's oh, I believe it's possible. And I'm like, then you really didn't convert. You didn't come into Judaism, because you had to let go of all the science voodoo and all this stuff. And then you told me, you said, what's your real reason? Because it reminded you too much of Seventh-day Adventists, that the Christians believe that
the world's 6,000 years old.
And because of that, you have to reject it. But you can't reject everything. You can't throw out the baby with the bathwater. You just got to get over it.
Oh, my father used to always say that phrase. Can't throw out the baby with the bathwater.
Okay, I'm not saying it then, because anything that reminds you of your father is no good.
No,
I'm not going to say it again.
Those are great memories.
I'm not going to say it again. I'm going to say, you can't cut off your nose to spite your face. Did your mom say that one?
And the reason I'm writing so much about my childhood is
I'm
taking a writing class. So the writing class teacher encourages you to write about anything you want to write about.
Okay.
So she'll just come in and she'll play music, or she'll ask some general questions.
Okay.
And then whatever comes to you, you write down.